These texts are the source of Jewish beliefs and values handed down from generation to generation. The text is the chain that binds the Jewish people across time and geographical dispersion. If there is a special place to learn what it means to be a Jew, then that place is the text. Men and women who want to study Jewish texts, who want to choose their own level of observance, who want to question as they learn, come to the Pardes Institute of Jewish Studies in Jerusalem. Why Pardes? The name itself provides an answer. Pardes means an orchard in Hebrew. But more than that, the 4 Hebrew letters that spell Pardes, Pei, Resh, Daled, and Samech, are an acronym for 4 levels on which a text can be explored. Pei stands for Pshat, the simple or literal meaning. Resh stands for Remez, the suggested or allegorical meaning. Daled stands for Drash, the contemporary application, and Samech stands for Sod, the philosophical, spiritual meaning. Let's take a familiar passage and follow it through these 4 levels of interpretation. In Leviticus, the 3rd of the 5 books of Moses, we read, V'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself.
We start with the pshat, the literal meaning of the words, by listening, arguing, and challenging, while paying close attention to syntax and grammar. The plain meaning of the Hebrew is unraveled.
Ve'ahavta, you shall love, l'reacha, your neighbor, or ve'ahavta l'reacha, you shall love for your neighbor, kamocha, as yourself.
Why love for your neighbor? I always heard it as love your neighbor.
Well, this letter lamed in l'reacha means for, so love for your neighbor.
Does it make a difference?
I think it's easier to have love for someone than to love them. What do you think?
Let's look at the pshat, the plain sense of studying at Pardes.
Pardes was founded in 1972 to respond with special sensitivity to basic concerns of Jews who come to learn. Students, academics, professionals who want to know, what demands does tradition make of me? How am I going to respond? At Pardes, we help our students to acquire the skills they need to grapple with these kinds of questions.
My commitment to Judaism was always solid, but my knowledge was shaky. I needed to take the time to educate myself, to build a foundation, line by line, paragraph by paragraph.
After 6 years of higher education, I felt I should spend at least 1 year studying the Jewish tradition. I needed to decide what I wanted for myself and what I wanted to give my children, but it had to be an educated decision.
One reason I chose Pardes was the high student-to-teacher ratio. I was able to get the personal attention I needed in my struggles with observance and the texts.
Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha. Love your neighbor as yourself. Another level of interpretation is remez, where the words have a deeper allegorical meaning beyond the plain sense of the pshat. What about re'echa, your neighbor? Does this mean something more?
Let's look at what Rabbi David ben Zimra wrote in the 16th century. He understood your neighbor as not only the guy next door, but the whole Jewish people. What was he getting at?
I think he was trying to put things in a broader social context. Loving your neighbor as yourself means understanding that you're actually part of and responsible for a larger entity, the entire Jewish people.
People from a kaleidoscope of backgrounds come to Pardes to learn. They have in common their eagerness to discover what Judaism means to them as individuals. This exploration is the remez, the deeper meaning of studying at Pardes.
I'm from Teaneck, New Jersey. I grew up in the conservative movement.
I have a bachelor's degree in psychology from UCLA.
I'm originally from Evanston, Illinois, and before I came here, I was working as a speechwriter and editor for the governor of Arizona.
I'm from Boston. Before Pardes, I was working at Hadassah Hospital. I'm a pediatric occupational therapist.
I'm from West Hartford, Connecticut, and before Pardes, I was a law student.
I was living in LA, managing a health food store.
What's good about Pardes is that what you've learned and experienced before coming here are seen as resources, not something to be put aside. You can bring any text into a Pardes class discussion. I've heard the whole range, from Shakespeare to Woody Allen and everything in between. But at the same time, there's a commitment to wrestle with the questions within the framework of the Jewish sources.
I had a pretty strong day school background, so I was able to take classes in Hebrew at Pardes. It was important for me, though, to learn with people who asked questions I'd never thought of before.
Pardes is different. It offers a very positive option in a Jewish world which is more and more polarized. It brings together Jews from different backgrounds, different places, and different levels of observance.
Pardes is a place where Jewish growth means opening yourself up to Jewish law and halakha. I'm not yet sure where I'll end up in terms of observance, but Pardes is giving me a good introduction to halakhic Judaism.
A third level of interpretation is drush, the contemporary application of the text.
Let's look at our text as it appears in the Talmud. It is said that a man once came to the sage Hillel and demanded, "Teach me the whole Torah while standing on one foot." Hillel accepted the challenge. He answered, "The whole Torah is this: do not do to others anything you wouldn't want done to you. The rest is commentary. Now, go and learn." It's not only important to understand what Hillel taught, but also how he taught it.
The man in the story was baiting Hillel, but Hillel didn't get angry or send him away. He took him seriously and challenged him to learn more.
So the story works on two levels. First, Hillel translates the text into, "Don't do to others what you wouldn't want them to do to you." Then he applies it by treating the man with the same respect he'd want for himself.
This is drush, Judaism in action, linking what's learned from the texts to the world outside.
In the Pardes service projects, we apply Jewish learning to real-life situations. Our students spend one afternoon a week volunteering in the community. The service projects are an integral part of our study program because simply learning about staka from the text isn't enough. We want our students to put their learning into action.
I'm teaching English at a Mennonite school in Beit Jala, which is a small town outside of Bethlehem. It means a lot to me because it is an opportunity to see a whole side to Israel that I would never get to see. It's meeting Arab kids and talking to them about what happens here.
I teach arts and crafts and English to kids at the community center in the Katamon area.
I've been working, exchanging Hebrew and English with a high school student here in the Baca neighborhood.
I work at the Baca Community Center with a group of mentally retarded and emotionally disturbed children.
I'm working in a local hospital with a handicapped gentleman. We're teaching him how to read.
My volunteer project was working with a woman, a learning disabled woman, getting together, just learning to do normal things, go on the buses and do things like that.
Political and social issues are also part of the learning at Pardes. Students recently demonstrated for Soviet Jewry with a 60-hour study vigil, which ended with a march to the Western Wall.
What made this demonstration different from others I've been on was that we weren't just protesting Soviet oppression. By studying, we were also affirming our own tradition.
For me, one of the most important things about Pardes is the emphasis on Jewish responsibility and Zionism. Even though I'll be returning to the States, Pardes has given me an important insight into Israeli life.
It made a deep impression on me that the teacher who taught us about the Exodus from Egypt had also worked with Ethiopian Jewry, and that the teacher who spoke about the meaning of Jewish sovereignty had served in the Israeli army.
One of the best things about Pardes is its sense of community. The intensive learning we do together spills over into our social lives. We often spend Shabbat at each other's houses or with our teachers. At the same time, living in our own apartments instead of dorms lets me have the privacy and independence I'm used to.
The sense of community continues after students leave Pardes. They keep in touch with one another, formally through Chevruta, the Pardes Journal, and informally as friends. Most return to their home communities. Some stay in Israel. But wherever they go, they're active in their local Jewish communities, as members, as educated lay leaders, and as professionals. And they continue exploring the different levels of interpretation, including the last, Sod, the spiritual meaning of the text.
If we are talking about love for your neighbor, what does that mean in our context? Rav Yosef Dov Soloveitchik has said, for the Jew, real love occurs when you and I learn Torah together, because when two Jews sit to learn a text, a third partner joins. That partner is God. People come to Pardes for many different reasons, but when they leave, they have something important in common. They all leave with a love for Jewish texts.
When you learn with your Chevruta partner, you feel like you're penetrating to the heart of Jewish tradition. It's tremendously exciting, but you also feel a great sense of responsibility. You're going all the way back to Sinai at the same time that you're paving a path to the future. It's something that will stay with me.
To study Jewish texts is to uncover many layers of meaning. The four levels of Pshat, Remez, Drash, and Sod are embodied in Pardes, the name and the place. Serious study, confronting the texts, discovering Jewish tradition for yourself, but not by yourself. This is the Pardes Institute of Jewish Studies.